Hey, hello, this is Shah from the podcast Thrive Not Survive After Sexual Abuse, or actually, I should say after child abuse, right? So, this is episode number, I think, 53 already. So, pretty big number, but the commitment that I made is to do it. Well, I will probably do it way more than to do it for a year long every day, and then see what happens. Because one of my mentors said, if you publish every day, and it could be a blog, and it could be a podcast, or it could be a vlog, it could be all three of them. So I do a little bit of a mix of all three of them, but it's always a podcast, and I also put it on YouTube, so you could call that a vlog. And if you look at it, then you see that I am wearing a beanie because it's pretty cold here in Dallas now. It's getting to a freezing point, believe it or not. But so number 53, and so one of the things that I noticed is, due to some circumstances, I was not really feeling well, and I had my birthday, and I had to make a little trip. I kind of slacked off a little bit. Do you know that feeling when you slack off a little bit? And you slack off a little bit. And it could be, in this case, it was the podcast, and it's not like I have millions of listeners that I would disappoint, but it doesn't really matter. Maybe you have only one or two faithful listeners, and they might be disappointed. Sometimes we think, if the audience is really big, then it's really bad if I don't do it. But if you have that, we often have that also maybe with a fitness routine, right? So it takes you a little while to make that a habit. And I always say after 60 days, when you do something, it becomes harder to stop. So then you know that it's a true habit, right? Some people say 60, some people say 100. Depends a little bit on what the habit is. So if it's 60, I didn't make the 60, and I stopped doing it every day. And then I said, okay, maybe I can skip a few days. And it then took me a little bit, a while. I'm not there, to be honest, back to do it every day. And that's how it is with discipline. That's how it is with all the things that we want to do in life. And we often make a good start, and we do it every day. And at some point in time, and that's very often happen with specifically things like fitness, exercise, discipline. It happens a lot with having really good food habits, right? We do it for a consecutive number of days, and then for some reasons we take a little pause, or we think we will take a little break, and we say, we only take a break for like 3-4 days. But what happened then is actually that breaks takes longer, and then we do it, maybe we go back to it 1 or 2 days, and then it slacks off. So, for instance, if it's not a habit to wake up early, I typically wake up early and do that every day. It's kind of like normal for me. I just wake up and then I go out of bed. But for some reason, if that's not truly your habit, right, and then you do it and you stop for a moment, then you will see actually that it takes way longer to pick that up again, if at all. Some people never pick it up again, and then you have to think about these things again. Happens very often in exercise, happen very often in food habits, right? If you say, hey, I don't want to drink coffee anymore, or less coffee, or I don't want to drink sugar drinks, stuff like that. Strangely enough, we pick these things up fairly easy. So to give you a couple of examples, in I don't know whether it's COVID, if it's the COVID nice situation or something else, but there was one moment where I didn't drink soda drinks for years, and then suddenly I had this huge craving for soda drinks, and like the real soda drinks, like Coke, right? Like that, like the sugar ones, not the, you can think about these things whatever you want, but not the diet Cokes, like the real ones. And to be honest, I'm still a little bit in it. I'm just going now a little bit to the diet drinks that has, no sugar in there, but still not something that I want to do. And I used to drink only water, but suddenly it stops. We don't know exactly why that happens, but it does. And then you have to come back to yourself and start to do all this kind of tricks that I normally teach to other people, and I had to apply them to myself to get out of these, not so good habits. Well, some of them are a little bit less innocent, but not so good habits, right? So it's often really hard to break a bad habit. And the best way to break a bad habit is actually to replace it with a good one. And the best way to take on a good habit is to, push out a bad habit. So that's a little bit how it happened. So for some reason, I had a little bit more migraines and stuff like that. I started to break a few of these habits. One was podcast, and the other one was actually exercise a little bit. No good excuses, and I'm always very fit. I dance a lot, so in my case, if it comes to exercise, if I don't bicycle every day, there is always something else that I do. So it's not a bad thing. But if you're not regularly exercise, period, and you fall off that rhythm, it's really hard to build it back up. And strangely enough, guys, I hope you're listening still to my podcast. It happened a little bit with my podcast. So on Sunday the 29th, I had to think about what shall I talk about, but it was really easy. So let's talk a little bit about habits, right? So building up a good habit, it takes at least 60 days. I like to think it takes about 100 days to build up a habit that you will almost never break again. I didn't even hit the 60, and there you see it. Around the number 40, I start to break it a little bit, and I did it. A few days later, I did one, and I had all kind of excuses like, oh yeah, I was traveling. But to be honest, I mean, if it's the podcast, it's just pick up your phone. Just say a few words and you do your podcast. And with exercise, if you're traveling, it's maybe a little bit harder. But you can still do it. You can still do push-ups in your hotel room and what have you not. So often we make our own. And it doesn't mean that you can never take a break. But if the habit is not really anchored in you, a break is actually stopping it. A break is when your habit is always there, right? And then you just take a break from it. That's a break where actually for 100% sure that you will start it again, because you cannot do it without anymore. And most people, a lot of habits, we think about the bad habits that you have, right? It's like stopping with smoking. Now, I know a few people who said they stopped and they never went back. But most smokers, they have stopped a million times already before they really stop smoking, right? So they stop for a few days and then they automatically go back to it. So they take a break from the bad habit. That happens a lot, right? We take a break from the bad habit and then the bad habit comes back. So good habits, that's a little bit harder to take on. And just, as a good advice, keep on a journal and write in your journal every day that you did your good habit. So you write about it until you did it for about 100 days, minimum 60 days. And then you will see that if you then take a break, you will always come back to it, right? You will always come back to it, because then it's it's the same thing with exercise. I exercise my whole life. And it's more than exercise, for a big part, I made dancing my profession. So by default, it's for me almost normal. But here it's the same thing. It's in levels, right? So if people look at me and they see me, they think, oh my gosh, this guy is in a really good shape, and I am in relatively to most, I'm in pretty good shape, but if I measure myself to the athletes that I normally measure myself with, I want a little bit of that habit to be really in shape. So that shape to, the factor whatever. And you have to build it up again. Now, I know how to do that. So it's I can do it again, but it takes something to build it up again, right? Does that make sense? So that's with good habits, right? Has to do with focus, has to do with mindset, It has to do with momentum. I talked a little bit about it in the podcast from last Saturday that I also do on Instagram Live. You need to first build up some sort of a momentum, some sort of a motivation. Then you have the right mindset, and then you need to get the focus. And if it's something new that you want to do, then you also need to think about mastery. So let me give you an example here. If it comes to you'd never exercised a lot, then you can take on that habit but it typically won't stay with you if you don't also put a teacher or a mentor next to you that can keep motivating you at least for those same 100 days that I was talking about. If it's something that you already know, right, it's a different story. But most of the things that we do, but it's also stopping with something. Let's say you want to stop smoking, you want to be more effective, make sure that you also do some sort of a mastery in it with taking a teacher with you, a mentor if you want to. It doesn't always have to be someone you pay to work you to it. So a good way is subscribe yourself to some sort of a challenge, right? So you see that a lot. It's kind of a, I don't want to say it's a business trick. It's actually a really good thing. Is a lot of people who have a certain skill and want to teach it to other people, and to bring them in their program, they often say, hey, I have a challenge for you. Do the 3 weeks challenge, or do the 21-day challenge, or do the 30-day challenge, because they know if the people that stay with that program, first of all, they learn a real skill in those 30 days. Secondly, they get an appetite for more, right? And so there's a commercial reason behind it. Now, you can be against it or not. That's up to you, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the following. If you do a challenge to stop smoking for, let's say, 30 days, and you do that with someone who's skillful to help you and talk you through it, I can guarantee you after those 30 days you want more. And that means you want to up your more healthy life, because smoking has a lot to do with an unhealthy habit. You know, I know good athletes who smoke, but the question is not how well they can be while they're smoking. The point is how well they have been without the smoking. So they stop and they typically get an appetite to do more. So let's say, so you could translate this, interesting enough, into a business model, right? You say, hey, I help you out of smoking. And that costs you nothing. I just do that. Follow me for 30 days and I can guarantee you will not smoke again, right? I say that. And then after that, I feel so good about it. Saying, hey, I saw that you also have a program to build up more muscles or become more leaner, stuff like that. Guess who I want to go to? I want to go to that person. So that's a little bit how mastery works, right? You do a challenge with people. You do that for free. I was not actually planning to make this podcast into a business podcast, but that's just what it is. All right. So in the end of this little story that I had about how I kind of fell off the wagon doing a podcast and I'm back on it. Well, we have to see if I'm really back on it, because that means that I have to be every day on it again. Let me also make a little connection to abuse victims here. One of the things that abuse victims often struggle with is to stay focused on things. Yeah, to stay focused on things. They, more than other people, have a tendency to not be able to stay with something for a longer time. Right? It's seriously true. I can testify it. You can read about it if you want to in my book. But this is one of the things. So here is the advice. If you are a child abuse victim and you feel that you have that lack of focus, have a hard time to stay with something, take one habit that you want to take on. Take a smaller one. Don't immediately do, I want to run a marathon. Take a smaller one. Maybe it's, I want to run 10K, right? So that could be that. If you need to lose weight, then do that. If you want to, so don't immediately go to like, I want to, change all my relationship with, because that also has a focus. You want to maintain a relationship and stay with the same relationship and make that healthy and fulfilling. That's also a habit. Habit sometimes sounds like a boring thing, but it's actually a really good thing, right? So take something smaller, right? And if you don't have any ideas what I'm talking about, just send me a message and I will give you a few ideas that probably fits you really well. All right, so this was Jean. The topic of today was habits, and it was I'm back on podcast. I think I actually said it a few times, right? And that's a little bit how you talk also to yourself. Yeah, no, I do it again, right? I'm just doing it open now in front of public and audience. This was Jean with the podcast Strive. not survive after child abuse, right? I hope to hear you back tomorrow. If I do it well, you will hear me back tomorrow, all right? This was Shah. Bye-bye.